Howdy, everybody. Wendy Wanders the City. This is your host, Paul, today. Uh, Today, we're going to do a special tribute for Bob Newhart. We just lost Bob Newhart just a couple of weeks back. Uh, Bob was one of my favorite comedians. I love dry humor. I love when you can tell a joke with a straight face and then people around you look like, is he serious? Um, so it's just fun um, to share Bob's life a little bit. What we're going to do today is, if you remember the Bob Newhart show back in like 1972, the opening of it was Bob Newhart would leave his office and he would walk and take commuter trains to get home. Now, his home was 5901 North Sheridan, which is the Thorndale Beach condominium, just south of Loyola University. We're not going to get all the way up there, but he did an awful lot of strange walking here in the city in order to make that occur. So we're going to go by where his place of work was, and we're going to follow his route until he got onto the train here in Chicago. So again, just to set the stage, we're going to redo the opening credits of the Bob Newhart show from 1972, when he would leave work, how you doing, Fuzzy, and he would head home. I've got a video of it. Let me see if I can get that to play real quick. And this is what we're going to do.
Hello?
All right, who's excited and who's ready to take a tour with me? I am, Natalie. So we're a little bit of ways away, so we're going to walk up, but I'll just talk a little bit about Bob Newhart as we head up towards his place of work. Now, he worked at the Charles Schwab building. I'm not sure if that's the name of the building anymore, but it's 430 North Michigan Avenue. And we're still over on Franklin, so we've got to go about 6 blocks east to the lake and just a few more blocks up to the river. So a little bit more background, right? Newhart was, again, a dry comedian. He was a stand-up comedian originally, and back in that era, if you were a really good stand-up comedian, you can oftentimes get a sitcom that would be built around you. All right, Seinfeld much later on, but back in the day, there was a guy who used to do the Jell-O pudding pop commercials, and we used to know him as Dr. Huxtable. That was an example of it. Welcome Back, Kotter. Kotter was a stand-up comedian back in that same era. And then they built a show around him, and that gave us Welcome Back, Kotter, so Gabe Kaplan in that time frame. Something else that was fun, so Bob Newhart had two fairly durable shows. I think they both went to syndication. So he had the Bob Newhart show where he was the psychiatrist in Chicago, or therapist in Chicago. and his office neighbor was Jerry the dentist, I think. And then Marcia, darn it, the secretary was Marcia something. So just a second, I need to turn off my Wi-Fi's real quick. So the first show was the one that was based in Chicago, right? And he's the therapist, and he'd show up to work, and you'd have his clients, and you'd hear a little bit of the fun stories there, and then the fun stories of the home life. And then the second show was based upon him owning a bed and breakfast or a hotel up in New England, and that brought us. I don't even remember the names of the characters there, but thank you, Marshall Wallace. That gave us the characters Daryl and Larry. And the boyfriend of the female, in that show, was originally paired with Tom Hanks in a TV show called 60 Seconds, which they were advertisers, commercial advertisers there. But that's where we first saw Tom Hanks in TV. Anyhow, so the Tom Poston was also in the New England version of Bob Newhart. Tom Poston is just a storied career as a comedian in that time frame. But when they decided to close down the New England version of the show, they did an interesting episode. Hopefully, you've all seen it, and if you haven't, close your ears for 30 seconds because we're going to have a little bit of a spoiler alert here. The last episode of the New England show was Bob. Sorry, we just got a bus and two trucks at the same time. Yes, the other show is just called Newhart. So Bob wakes up in bed with the first show's wife, and he's basically the punchline is, "I just had the most bizarre dream." And you see that he's back in his bed with Suzanne Plachette, the original, the wife on the original show. I'm going to see if I can get across the street here. I want to get out of the soundtrack of the trains as we go through here. I don't know how odd this looks, but you're seeing kind of behind me. I'll turn the camera around fairly shortly in this space. But all of that, one of Bob's long-running jokes or most remembered jokes you would hear his half of a phone conversation, and I thought it was always fun to listen to how well he could react on that phone conversation. But again, he would never break character, and he always had what I would say is just a straight face, right? He would tell these dry jokes, and he would never crack that smile or crack laughter. So, very, very impressive. All right. We're heading through the theater. Well, the theater district is pretty widely spread here in Chicago, but we're coming past the Palace Theater. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys on the back camera, and that way I can concentrate a little bit. Yeah, the best straight face in the business, absolutely. All right. So, we actually get an interesting opportunity here. We're coming past the State of Illinois building, it used to be called the Thompson Center, I think, at one point in time. Jim Thompson, one of the past governors of the state of Illinois. And this was the State of Illinois building, and it's recently been purchased by Google. And this was a very large glass-enclosed atrium in the middle. and then offices all around the edges as it rose up. But you can see that they've kind of peeled away the lower layers, and they're definitely doing some massive renovations on this. Google purchased the building. So Google is now renovating this area. You'll see that it looks just devastated inside. So I'd be interested to see if it used to be a public space inside, and it's connected to Chicago's Pedway. Howdy, MD Media. Thanks for coming in. So now we're at LaSalle Street. Oh, you know what? I talk about this all the time. This is that iconic look of the financial district here in Chicago, and it shows up in Batman and several other movies, right? Honey, I Shrunk the Babysitter, and I know that's not the name of it, but Catherine Applegate. I think the babysitter's dead or something like that. Might be what that one was. Yep, folks, I have been away from this channel quite a bit, and it's just life has been very, very busy between clients and the other channel. So today we are going to take the iconic walk that Bob Newhart used to take when he left the office and headed home. Now, we're not going to go all the way to his home. His home is pretty far north. It's 5901 North Sheridan, which puts you basically in Evanston. So while he was a Chicagoan, born in Oak Park, and the show was set in Chicago, that home would have been in Evanston, just south of Loyola University. Thank you for the fact check, Fuzzy. I like that I can just make up names and you guys all understand what I'm trying to say. And if you don't understand what I'm trying to say, Fuzzy will set you straight. Next street is Dearborn, so we're about 3 blocks from Michigan, and we're 3 blocks south of where we'll start today's tour. Is anybody, and by the way, I love the opening of the show. Does anybody want to see the opening of the show one more time? And you'll see the route that we're going to take today. So another spoiler alert, but this will be a much more short-term spoiler alert. All right, folks. Here is the opening to the 1972 show, Bob Newhart. And we're going to follow much of this course, or much of this route today.
Hello?
All right, so there's our route for the day. Now, you'll notice, right, when he got on those trains, they used to be a little bit closer to an accordion-style door. Nowadays, they're sliding doors, so they have more of the Star Trek whoosh, whoosh. But back in the day, it was an accordion-style door, and that was a Green Line train that he was getting on, which the Green Line really doesn't go anywhere near where Bob Newhart lived. So you're going to notice on this tour that Bob Newhart was absolutely lost when he was trying to go home. We're just a couple of blocks away from the start of his walk home. He worked in the Charles Schwab building, and that was 430 North Michigan Avenue. If he would have been efficient in going home, he would have walked behind the building, gone 2 blocks over. He would have crossed, well, 3 blocks, because there's another little street there called Rush Street. So you've got Rush, Wabash, State, and the red line runs underneath State Street. The red line is also what would have taken him home. At no point does he get on the red line. Now, the red line here in Chicago, in the centers, in the city center, is a subway. And you'll notice, right, that he was riding all above ground trains. Now, once the red line gets north of like Division Street, it will pop up above ground. The same thing with the blue line. And the blue line and the red line then will stay principally above ground. The blue line will dip down a couple of times as it goes back and forth underneath the expressway. So here we're seeing a couple of the iconic buildings in Chicago, right? The Corncob Building, or Marina Towers. You've got the Black Square Building is the AMA. Then you've got Trump right next to that. And by the way, that's on the tour, but it wouldn't have been there in 1972. And you've got the Wrigley Building beyond that. And here you've got the hotel structures at the bend in the river. This is the London House Hotel and the Royal Sonesta are here. You get a great view of the river from where that's at. All right. Let's see here. We'll take the bridge. I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll go further down and we'll cross Michigan Avenue Bridge. Howdy, Marina. So today we're closing in on it. We'll be there shortly. I guess I always think I can walk faster than I do, but we'll be there shortly. Heading over to Michigan Avenue. As we walk forward here, we can see a Jehovah's Witness stand, and they've got somebody engaged here. I'm going to put you on mute. I got a siren coming here soon. All right, back with you. In front of us, you see the curved building here, 17th Church of Christ Science. It's the Christian Science church, and they have a reading room in here. Now we're coming up on Wabash Street. It's a beautiful day here in Chicago. It's a little bit warm, but it's cooler than it's been the last few days. Well, it's been chilly the last 2 days, but prior to that, We had a bit of a heat wave. If you are ever in Chicago, if you are on a north-south street, the streets on the west side of the street, or the buildings on the west side of the street, are the even-numbered buildings, and the buildings on the east side of the street are the odd-numbered buildings. We're going to 430 North Michigan Avenue, which is basically right next to Wrigley. So up ahead of us, right, you see the Wrigley building there, the Gothic towers. Across the street is WGN. Remembering that WGN was the call letters for both the TV station and the radio station, and WGN stood for the world's greatest newspaper, as it originally was a Tribune-owned property. We're also going to go past what used to be the Sun-Times building. So Chicago used to have two rather competitive newspapers, the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times. The print media has basically been decimated, so the Sun-Times no longer exists, and I think that the Tribune, well, this Tribune originally sucked up the Sun-Times, and then I think it's the Los Angeles Tribune, or whoever owns the Los Angeles Tribune might be who owns all of the Chicago newspapers now. So we've definitely had a consolidation in the newspaper industry. We're coming up to Michigan Avenue. This one, I really do want to cut this film together. Now, we're going to have to wait a little bit because I am going to have to take the train up to Evanston. And by the way, that's not a long trip. It's just not a trip that I could take today. And we'll we'll have the more brief version of this coming out soon on the channel. So the bus driver's not happy about the scooter who's traveling in the bus lane. Here you've got a view again of the Wrigley building here. You've got the tour boats and the Chicago Water Taxi boarding down there. And then next to it is Trump Tower. We'll skate around the corner here and head over to our first stop of the day. This is kind of interesting. They put a camera inside this ring light, and then you do a little bit of they do a 360 around you while you stand on that platform. It gives you a very 360-ish view of, and they play with the backdrop quite a bit on that. These people are walking at pedestrian pace. There are times I wish you needed a license in order to walk. But I'm glad these people are out walking, getting some exercise. Kathy, it is a great city. I'm a big fan of the city of Chicago. It'll open up here. Now there's, and I can hear that there is some street performance going on here in front of the Wrigley building. It is a place where the crowds will gather, either waiting for the tour boats or to get across this bridge that we've got in the background. Now, Newhart walked the wrong way on almost all of these bridges and roads, but again, it's, poetic license, or however you want to say it, the creative elements that were allowed for the network or the TV producers to film the show as they wished. Let's see if I can zip through here. As we come around the corner here of the Tribune building, the Wrigley building, we will get our first glimpse of the Schwab building. So this building here is 430 North Michigan Avenue. It's now called the Realtor Building. As you can see on that silver banner there. But again, you've got Charles Schwab over the doorway here. But this was where Bob Newhart comes out of work, with his hat and his overcoat on, and he's ready to head off to work, or off to home, right? So his next venture was this pedestrian bridge. Now, he naturally would have been walking this direction, right? I'm going towards this bridge from his office, and he should have been walking this direction as he crossed this bridge. He does not. Unfortunately, I can't play clips of that, so you got to play a minute at a time, and I don't want to kill you all with watching the same clip over and over, although it's more fun to watch Bob Newhart than it is to watch me. This is the pedestrian bridge that you see him walking along as the next sequence of his walk heading home from the office. However, the camera is down in this area, and it would have been a parking lot at that point in time as well, but the camera was down in this area, and it's looking back this direction to give you the view of the Wrigley building that's going on here. Now, he was also walking across the bridge the opposite direction. So he would have been going the other way. Strangely, this is the way that he should have been heading home. And if we were to go one block further after we get off this bridge, you would be on State Street, and one block up, you would be at State and Grand, and that would be the red line where he could have gotten on the train and headed up to Evanston. He did not do that. The next scene that you're going to see in that is actually him walking along the river between the Sun-Times building and the river. But that Sun-Times building no longer exists. It was knocked down, and in place of it, we now have Trump Tower. So the tall building right here with the large spire. Trump Tower is the largest all concrete, which is strange because it seems like there's an awful lot of metal in this building, but it's the largest all concrete or tallest all concrete structure in North America. Now there's another pedestrian bridge that goes across right here, and that would have taken you in between the two towers of the Wrigley building. Got this large black building across the street. It's got the Langham Hotel, but it's really the AMA building. So most of that is office space, and the named tenant on the building was the American Medical Association. Now we're going to be able to knock off two quick ones right here. That the third scene in the sequence, like I said, it was along the Tribune building. I'm sorry, the Sun-Times building, between the Sun-Times building and the river. The Sun-Times building no longer exists. These towers to your right would not have been in that scene. You would have just seen the edge, the wall edge here, in the opening scene of the Newhart show. So, and he would have been walking this direction, which again is just very strange. He's walking back towards work on his way home from work. So the producers and the editors of the show, well, at least the editors of the opening credits, played on the fact that probably nobody knows their way around Chicago. So you can see that we would have gone all the way back down there. Now, again, this looked very much different. The Trump Towers had, you can probably tell there's some curvature to this wall. The old Sun-Times or IBM building, because it went from Sun-Times to IBM bought the building after Sun-Times went under. It was a rectangular building, so it would have been a straight wall that you would have seen there. And the fourth sequence is him walking across this bridge. And he is walking from south to north, so we'll go, again, the opposite way that he would have been going. But in all three of these opening moving scenes, he was walking directly back towards his office. Now, on this scene, and I don't have the drone with me, but on this scene, you would have seen it raise up. So they'll kind of give an overhead shot, and then they'll look all the way down the river. Although it's at the same height as me. And right now you're seeing a train cross the river way down there. I know I say that you're seeing that, but you're seeing it very tiny on here. They would have raised the aspect of this shot to give an overhead shot and then look down the river towards Wells Street, which is that other train that's going to go through there. Oh, you know what? I'm going to keep on going this direction. Because after the walking across this bridge, which again, he was walking across this bridge the opposite direction. So Bob Newhart, he leaves the office. He walks down the Hubbard Street pedestrian bridge towards his office. He walks along the Sun-Times building towards his office. He walks on this bridge towards his office. And then he's going to get on the L right below us, or just south of us. You can see that there's a large structure over the street, about a block down. That is the superstructure that is the tracks that hold the elevated track up above the streets of Chicago down here in the city center. And it looks much nicer when this truck isn't here. And now I'll give you the theme music again, right? Da, 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 da. Which all of them were very close, because that almost sounded like Wonder Woman, and it almost sounded like the opening of Stalag 13. If you're a big football fan, there is a bar right here called the Emerald Loop, I think. And in the summertime, it's going to play English Premier League all the time. It'll do other European or worldwide sports, but for the most part, it's a soccer hangout. And you're going to hear 1,000 different accents and languages when you're in there. Now, again, I'm kind of walking back into the city center, which this would have been a foolish route for Mr. Newhart to take home. I'm sure he had a straight face. If he would have had a cell phone, which did not exist in 1972, he would have been using that phone to look for directions up to his home in Evanston. So the elevated track here, right? Remember that Chicago is called the Loop, right? Or the Chicago Loop. And one of the definitions is the area bounded by this elevated track. And here you see a green line upstairs. He's going to get on the green line right there. Sorry. Oh, you're hearing a nasty squeal. Oh, you know what? I am going to cross over real quick because I think he got on at State and Lake. And State and Lake, we're at Wabashin Lake right here. State and Lake is one block down right here. So we got a little extra bit of the city while we were waiting. As we're walking over there, I'm going to go ahead and we'll watch the opening sequence one more time.
Hello?
So you saw him get onto the get on the train here at State and Lake. This would have been where he got on. Now this again would not be a train that would take him to where he needed to go. I'm going to run across here real quick. And our last point of interest on this little tour is going to be the Wells Street crossing of the Chicago River. Now that one gets him a little bit closer. The brown line will go north there, as well as the purple line. And the purple line didn't exist in 72, but the purple line would have been an expressway, an express train for him to go home. Kathy, that's not a bad thing, is it? So Bob left work at 430 North Michigan Avenue. He walked the wrong way across the Hubbard Street Bridge. He walked the wrong way along the river between the Sun Times building and the river. He walked the wrong way on the Wabash Street Bridge, and he got on the wrong train at State and Lake. You can see that I'm following underneath the tracks right here. And as we opened up, we were at the Thompson Center, or the State of Illinois building. We're going to kind of go through that again. Yes, that is. And I will tell you that it's very likely that this video will get copyright struck, but as we're not monetized yet, we're pretty far away from that. But, you know, I did notice today we're up to 90 subscribers, so we are growing. I love that. And thank you all for subscribing. If you're not yet subscribed, please do. It's free. Ahead of us, you see a little glass bridge structure that it goes from the train's platform over to the State of Illinois building. I'm going to quickly pop out, see if we can find some sunshine up there at the Wells Street. Now, the Wells Street Bridge is an interesting bridge because, like all of the all the bridges here in Chicago, they're movable because the river traffic has the right of way. So these bridges have to go up and down to allow for boats, both commercial and recreational, to come through the waterway. Most of these just have a car lane that they have to worry about. Now, there's two of them that have double-decker, well, three of them that have double-decker automobile or car bridges. So Michigan Avenue has an upper and lower street. So there's two levels of the bridge that are rising and lowering at the same time. Columbus Avenue, wait. Yeah, Columbus Avenue does. You know what? I'm second guessing myself on Columbus, but then Lakeshore as well. So Lakeshore is the last one. We'll see if we can get a little walking in here. So we walked up Clark. We've got to get down to LaSalle Street, across LaSalle Street, and then cross, well, not cross, but then we'll be at Wells. Again, it's a double-edged sword. I'm so happy to see so many people out walking about, but then it's like, hey, wait, all of you people in my way, stop walking about. Looks like we got the signal pretty quickly here. Go ahead and...
You're good, but just,
So we'll wait here for just a second. It is rush hour, so there will be trains across very frequently. You've got the Merchandise Mart back here. This is the Wells Street Bridge. Oh, and there we go. We've got a train coming from the south or our left. And that is the direction that the train was traveling that is in the opening scenes of Newhart. And this one happened to be a Brown Line train. This one goes out to Kimball. If you watch the channel, there's a show on the last 4 or 5 stops of the Kimball Street Brown Line. I've always liked this because you might have boats, you've got pedestrians, you've got cars, you've got a train. So just like all the modes of transportation are here, and every once in a while you'll see a train up in the air, or a plane up in the air as well too. If you see a train up in the air, we're probably in trouble. So that is the last element. Now, the way that the opening closes, or the opening kind of completes itself is he gets off a train up in Evanston at Isabella Street. Now, Isabella Street is no longer a functioning stop for the elevated tracks. It closed about a year after the show opened. And then the final scenes are him outside of, the final exterior scene is him outside of his home at the Thorndale Beach condo. And Thorndale Beach condo is named Thorndale because it's where Thorndale Avenue or Thorndale Street comes into Sheridan. So it's a T intersection, and then if you were to drive down Thorndale, you would drive right across Sheridan into the parking lot of the condominium towers. And then naturally right behind those towers, there is a beach. So much of the North Shore has a sandy beach, whereas down here it's more of a concrete beach in order to control the erosion that's going through all of that. Here we've got, this is Wells Street. You've got the train that would go over the top of us, and then we're walking along the bridge, or the street, the lower level of the street layer. Folks, if you haven't been on the channel before, Merchandise Mart was the crown jewel of the Kennedys. This used to be, at one point, it was considered the largest retail space in the world. It is a massive structure. It's now mostly office buildings. The lower levels are still design studios for high-end brand like Kohler and marble floors and special plumbing, clawed-foot tubs, that kind of stuff. And then out in front, you see several statues. I think there's 8 of them, and those are kind of the Hall of Fame for retailers in America. So you've got Marshall Field, Saks, Montgomery Ward, Carson Peary. All of the retail magnates are kind of honored on those statues that are across there. All right, folks. Hopefully that was an enjoyable little tour. I will go ahead and we'll close with the theme playing one more time. And then I will try to edit this up, and we'll see if we can get this out as a nice curated video sometime soon. Thank you all for being here. If you've stayed till the end, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And let's watch the opening one more time. Thanks, everybody.